It's meant to help us are out of control.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fantasy Files Reacts, where we talk about any sort of media that interests us, including video games, movies, TV shows, all the above. If you're new here, my name is Spencer, and today I'm going to be talking about Horizon Forbidden West for the PS4 and PS5. If you end up enjoying this content, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons down below. And don't forget to hit the little bell icon to get notified of new content from us. You can also follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy to see more of my reactions to various things, including the books that I'm reading. But I must have made like a dozen posts there for Horizon Forbidden West. So if you'd like to be a part of those conversations, that is definitely worth checking out. Usually I go on for a bit about what content is coming out next for us, but I'm really not sure where this video is going to land among our other videos I'm currently editing. So instead, I'll say that if you like our reaction videos, which are not exactly reaction videos, more just reviews for stuff besides fantasy and sci-fi books. But if you like these videos, let us know what piece of media you'd like to see us talk about down in the comments, whether it's a game, movie, or TV show, or other, fantasy, sci-fi related stuff. Let us know down there in the comments. I can say that we are currently considering doing a big discussion on a show from a couple of years ago called Dark. I'm sure everybody remembers it. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, so definitely keep an eye out for that and let us know if that's something that you would enjoy. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's talk about Horizon Forbidden West. So first off, why I played Horizon instead of Elden Ring. So it's funny, I've been looking forward to Horizon Forbidden West for a long time now. And then it comes out right around the same time as Elden Ring. And Elden Ring is the only thing anybody is talking about. And I feel like Horizon got badly overshadowed by Elden Ring. I really didn't see any content for Horizon coming out, even though the first game was a huge success. So that's just really, really unfortunate timing on Guerrilla's part. So I think I will play Elden Ring eventually, probably. But honestly, I think it's just simply too hard for me because I tried playing Bloodborne, and that was way too difficult. I've heard some people say that Elden Ring is a little bit easier, but the main thing that draws me to it is just the world. Seeing some of these clips that people are uploading, I'm just like, man, I want to be in that world so bad. But I do not think that they should add a difficulty setting to make it easier for the people that are kind of complaining about that. I'm definitely not one of those people. I think that they should produce the game that they want in whatever way they want, and if they want to make a punishingly hard game, then more power to them. But it does make me think twice about picking it up, because do I want to spend $60 on a game that I'm not going to be able to get through the first level? Most of the games that I play, I usually play on like medium difficulty or sometimes easy difficulty, because usually I'm just there for the story and the gameplay. Like I'm not, I never really feel like I need like a punishingly hard game. Especially I'm just way too busy to put, even more hours into a video game where I just keep dying and keep dying. I usually turn that difficulty down pretty low. So we'll see. Maybe I'll give Elden Ring a shot at some time in the future. But Horizon was definitely my priority to play because I just fell in love with that first game and kind of the idea of this post-apocalyptic type world and just the story that they told us through that game. So I'm going to get into kind of what the game is about, kind of the basic story. This will be very light spoilers for the beginning of the game, if you can even consider it that. I promise that there's so much that happens story-wise later in the game that this really is nothing in comparison. But I understand that some people may want to go in completely blind, in which case this may not be the review for you, but really I'm not going to spoil any major plot points or anything. I'm just going to get us rolling so that we kind of know what's going on here, because I feel like I need to explain enough of what happens to get us to where the Forbidden West part of the game even comes into play. So this game picks up a few short months after the events of Zero Dawn, with Aloy learning of a new plague that is destroying the Earth known as the Blight. She sets out to find stored backups of Gaia, and if you don't remember, that's kind of the AI interface / god that is going to be able to set everything right and bring everything back to how it was in the original days of humankind. And she's been largely unsuccessful trying to find these backups of Gaia. Along the way to her last hope of finding one of these backups, her friend Varl surprises her and joins her for a short time on her journey before getting ditched by Aloy because, and I swear to God, he just wouldn't be able to keep up with her. More about that later. Before she bails on him, they discover an old remnant of the Far Zenith Company, where she believes she will find the Gaia remnant. Instead of finding Gaia, she finds out that they were a colony who is going to leave the solar system to get away from Earth's destruction, but were unsuccessful. Left with no options, she returns to Meridian and receives a transmission from Silence telling her to meet him in the Forbidden West. She then eventually ditches Varl when they're in Meridian and heads out to the Forbidden West to run into many new tribes, one of which has been taught by someone to override machines. And that's really where our story starts picking up steam. If I go any further, I risk really spoiling some stuff. So that will have to do for now. Basically, you're following Silence into the Forbidden West to try to find Gaia, get her back and running, get her to full power to conquer the Blight, among many other things. Now, I mentioned Aloy ditching Varl, even though she could definitely use his help. She also does this with Erend, which upset me even more. Luckily, this is all part of her really fantastic character arc throughout the game. I don't want to give too much away as far as when the side characters come back into play or even who comes back in general, but we do get to see some familiar faces. The only thing that bugs me about this is they weren't involved a whole lot outside the bare minimum. I really liked in the last game developing meaningful relationships with these characters, and even some hinted romances. There were absolutely no romantic options or even subtle romantic dialogue in this game. I was really hoping we'd finally see Aloy and Erend together, which was hinted at pretty hard in the last game. But besides their initial interaction in Forbidden West, it really was not mentioned at all. Matter of fact, Aaron comes off as even dumber and goofier in this game than in Zero Dawn, which I really didn't like. I would have liked to have seen a great character arc from him, but he was mostly sidelined for 99% of the game, which is true for almost all the side characters. With how this game ends, though, I'm really hoping the supporting characters play a bigger role in the next game. Now that that little rant is over, let's talk about some of the things I really loved in this game. So, this actually had one of the best stories I've played in a long, long time. It was never convoluted or confusing. I always knew what was going on, and it was super, super engaging. Each next thing felt like it was super important, and you really feel like what you're doing matters and needs to be done now. This does have a little bit of the drawback of the side quests seeming super insignificant compared to the main storyline, because the main plot that you're dealing with is like a ticking time bomb that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. Like it just doesn't make much sense to help the local cook find the carrots that she needs for dinner when literally the world is ending. The side quests make a lot more sense narratively if you do them after the main story, which is mostly what I did, aside from a few times I needed to run through a couple things to get the extra level or two. However, some of the side missions had really great characters with really fantastic dialogue, like with Moreland, who is out in the Nevada desert, literally trying to rebuild Las Vegas and bring casinos and stuff back. I love these near future stories because there's so much modern day culture that you can reference throughout it. All that being said, I literally was tearing up at the end of the game watching the final cutscene. It filled me with such a sense of awe and hope, a little bit of sadness, but also a lot of excitement for the next game. And it was just a let's fucking go kind of moment. You know what I mean? Okay, so I was playing this on my PS4. I don't even have a PS5. And these were hands down the most beautiful graphics I've ever seen in my whole life. Besides just the rendering, the way that everything moved felt so realistic and fluid. And if you run full speed into a wall, you see Aloy's hair kind of fly forward around her face. Not to mention like dodging and rolling. It all just looked really, really, really smooth. The lighting that is used in this game is incredible as well. It did get a little old at times where the sun is actually getting in your eyes, and it can be hard to see when that is happening. But I'm sure there's a way to turn that off if you really wanted to. But honestly, if the graphics were this good on PS4, I can only imagine what they looked like on PS5, or especially on PC. They'll look insane when that finally comes out. Let's talk about the map that we get to play in a bit. So this was pretty cool. It's supposed to loosely represent every kind of terrain across the United States, as the map is basically a swath of land going from the East Coast to the West Coast. And again, this was a very loose interpretation. So you'll see cool, like decayed landmarks and stuff. But it's not like you can pinpoint any of these areas on an actual map, like you were sort of able to do in games like Infamous Second Son, I think Watch Dogs Legion and whatnot. But we do get every type of environment, from a kind of grassy, hilly area to the desert and canyons, up to the snowy north, the deep green jungles and tropical beaches of the West Coast. I've only seen this much environmental diversity in maybe two or three other games, and one of them is World of Warcraft. Also, the map is completely covered in things to do. There are caves to explore, even underwater areas, and the verticality in this game is really fantastic. There is a ton of stuff that you can only get to by climbing and kind of platforming your way up huge mountains and cliffs and canyons and stuff. And not to mention the ruins that are all around. There's many little hidden encampments and villages. I've probably put 50 hours into this game so far and beaten the main story, as well as a bunch of like side quest stuff. And I've probably only uncovered about 60, maybe 65% of the map. I really, really enjoyed my time running around this world, and there's certainly a lot more for me to do. So, a lot of the weapons and armor are pretty much the same. You have your hunter bows, which are the best all around bows, kind of like medium damage and medium range with a pretty quick draw speed. Then you have your sharp shot bows, which are kind of your high damage, high range bows, but they do take a long time to draw back. I probably use that one the most. The arrows are also more expensive for that bow, and you can only carry like 12 or 15 arrows for those. Then you have the warrior bows, which I personally never really used because I just thought the hunter bows were a little better. But I kind of figured they had the fastest draw speed but lowest damage, and were more meant for like close combat encounters. But then you have things like your traps, slingshots, and tripwires. They also, it's not exactly a weapon, but they also introduced smoke bombs into this game. So you can throw that down and get back into some cover if you need to get away from the big dinos. But my favorite, the thing that I used the entire game, were the exploding throwing spears. These things, if you can learn how to throw them well, which does take a little bit of practice, are super powerful, and I highly, highly recommend getting very good with these. The armor is pretty much the same as the last game, but damn, the armor looks fantastic in this game. Every set just looks really, really cool. All the different helmets are so awesome. And I highly recommend going through and doing all the salvage contracts in this game, because then you can get a really good set of armor. It doesn't look as great as some of the other sets that you can get, but it definitely boosts your stats a lot and will help you a ton in surviving some big combat situations, especially later on in the game. The combat is just probably my absolute favorite out of any game, besides Dishonored or Deathloop. Those are like my two like number ones. But the constant challenge of figuring out a new enemy's weakness and how to dispatch them is so addicting. I got so addicted to flipping on the focus, seeing the highlighted armor plates that can be removed, and kind of taking them off one by one with my tear arrows. It was so satisfying. The combat that wasn't as satisfying was the human combat and the melee combat. Humans were just super boring to fight, honestly, and kind of annoying after fighting these huge robotic beasts. And the best way to go about fighting them was using the melee, which I feel like they still haven't perfected all the way. They definitely have come a long way with it, but it's not great by any means. I would have really liked the ability to get different melee weapons, but you're really just stuck with the same spear the entire game. There is a whole melee skill tree, but aside from a couple things, I think it really didn't add much to it. The part that made the melee shine was when you go into a city's melee pit and learn their kind of signature melee button combos, which really opened up my eyes to all the different things you could do with melee combat. However, every move is a combination of R1 and R2 with various amounts of pressing either of those. Like for one move, you might press R1 4 times and then quickly press R2, or you might press R1 2 times and then move the stick forward and hold R2 or something like that. And it just got really confusing. And when I was actually out in the wild, all of that kind of goes out the window because everything is happening so fast. You're not going to remember these super, like, really specific button combos. There's so many of them, you just can't retain that. And so I learned about two that really helped me with like breaking the enemy's defense, and like vaulting over an enemy. Those are the two that I kind of stuck with. All in all, the combat was 10 out of 10 for me. Even after finishing the main mission, I would just hop on to walk around and kill whatever robots were in my way because it's just so much fun. And sorry, I know I've spent a ton of time on combat, but there's really a bunch of other fun stuff to do as well. Of course, there's the tall necks again, which are always fun, kind of mini puzzles. But there's also these old world ruins, which are kind of Legend of Zelda type puzzles to get some important data or treasure. And now that I think about it, I probably really like Horizon so much because it is the obvious evolution of what Legend of Zelda is. This game even lets you climb mountainsides and stuff, but not in the same way that Breath of the Wild does. You kind of have to scan the mountainside with your focus to see like where you can grab. But there's still a lot of places that you can climb up and whatnot. Like usually if you look at something and think that like I should be able to climb that, then you probably can, honestly. There's also these things called cauldrons. I can't remember if they were in the last game, but these are places where the AI Hephaestus is creating more robots, and it's kind of like a big AI created robot factory that you have to like fight your way through to get to the boss at the end. And then you get the machine override codes to use out in the world. And it's pretty much your typical like open world type dungeon, but they're really, really cool. They're part puzzle, part action. It's a lot of fun. Early on, you also get a hang glider type thing made from a piece of tech that is pretty much a invisible shield, that kind of like a holographic shield that springs up. That thing is a ton of fun, especially when you jump from a super high place and then just bring up your glider right before you hit the ground, or if you pull it up right away and just get to kind of enjoy the view as you glide along. The only thing that irritated me a lot about the glider was every time she opened it, she always made some sort of comment like it was her first time using it. I mean, like, I'm like 50 hours into the game and she's like, I think I'm starting to get used to this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I fucking hope so. We've only done this like 900 times by now. Or she'd freak out and say, I'm falling. Oh, wait, I'm gliding. Really, Aloy? Really? I also really liked the new stash system. This was really nice. And again, maybe this was something that was in the last game, but I don't remember it. You never have to worry about your inventory getting full and not being able to pick up more medicine or machine parts or anything, because it all just automatically gets sent to your stash box, which are all over the place. Like they are all at like half the campfires. So if you run out of something, all you have to do is run over to a stash box and fill up your inventory, which was super, super convenient. The new skill tree system was really sweet. There's two different kinds of abilities that you can use now. One is a weapon ability that you save up something called weapon stamina to use. You can get stamina from, I think, hitting enemies with normal attacks or getting hit, or maybe just waiting and letting it charge. And then you press R1, usually for a super like explosive arrow attack and other stuff kind of like that, like sharp shot attacks and whatnot. Then you have the Valor Surge, which is more of a buff that you can use once in a while. For that one, you open up your weapon wheel and select it with R1. And it's usually something like your arrow damage is, increased for like 30 seconds or something. Or it lets you take a really strong health potion. That I use that one a lot. I really liked the new skills, but you gain skill points really, really easily. So before too long, I had all the skills I wanted to use and was just left with like 30 skill points that really weren't doing anything. And I was already like God mode. So, a lot of the skills in the skill tree you're probably not going to use, but you can definitely find a few of them that will certainly help you out throughout the game. Lastly, oh my God, the new robots in this game are 12 out of 10. They are so good, you guys. They're so awesome. There are so many new ones. I'm pretty sure I haven't even run into all of them yet. I was actually just playing today and I ran into a brand new one I had never seen before. So there's like a gigantic snake that is so hard to beat because it moves so fast and so often, and it is absolutely terrifying for sure. There's also a thing called a Tide Ripper that is basically a giant Loch Ness monster, which was one of my favorite fights. But my absolute favorite battle so far was with something called a Rock Breaker. And this is basically the worms from Dune. It burrows underground, and if you watch the ground carefully, you can see it kind of ripple where it's going to pop up. And damn, it is just such a cool fight and such a cool robot. Both times I fought them, it literally took me like 20 minutes or so to beat. It was really, really difficult, but it was also a ton of fun. And you just feel so good when you finally hit it with that final arrow. It's absolutely perfect. I really want to keep talking about the different robots, but I also really don't want to spoil too many of them for you, because there's some that you'll find out in the middle of nowhere and it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe they put that into the game. It's so cool. The robots, all the different robots were by far my favorite part of the game. All right, let's talk about some of the things I didn't like, and there are a few of them. So Aloy, for most of the game, for most of the story, is kind of an unbearable character in general. She believes that she is the only one in the world who can save them, which could possibly be true, I guess, since she's like the clone of what's her name, Elizabeth, and has more access to stuff because of that. But my God, is it grating sometimes, just in her dialogue and stuff. She really just pushes everyone else aside for most of the game, and won't accept help from anyone. She doesn't joke around or anything most of the time, besides a few times here and there in some of the side missions. She definitely gets a lot more bearable by the end of the game when she starts getting like humbled a little bit more. But oh man, that beginning had me really, really irritated with her, to the point where I was like, is anybody else noticing this? Like, just took to the internet to complain, of course. The mount travel controls are absolutely abysmal. They are the absolute worst I've seen in any game. Yeah, I like, similar to like tank controls, I just hated controlling a mount. I've never seen anything like this in another video game, besides maybe, you know what it's like? It's like trying to drive stick in a racing game, because it's kind of the same thing. You have to get on the mount and then press X to move forward, but that only moves you forward slowly. So you have to keep pressing X to sprint. And if you want to slow down so that you don't run into a wall or something, you have to press circle several times to slow yourself down or to stop. You can kind of turn this off so that you're always sprinting while mounted as a default. But for some reason, if you do that, you just get stuck and can't even move in the most random of spots that don't even make sense at all. It was infuriating. Like, honestly, just like on a path, if it's got like a little bit of an embankment on the side, you'll just be sprinting through and just like stop. And you have to go like way away from the embankment to even be able to move forward. It was absolutely infuriating. I found myself mostly just fast traveling and running to where I needed to go, because it was enough to make me want to break my controller when I would get stuck while just getting hammered by some hostile robot. And it's like, I can't move. I just can't fucking move. So customizing your button layout on your controller, there's simply no way to do it. Oh, sure, it technically gives you the option, but it really doesn't work at all. I literally tried at least a dozen custom bindings, and no matter how I did it, and believe me, I literally tried every single way you could possibly do it, there was always one button that wouldn't work, even if it said the action was bound to that button in the menu. All I wanted to do, the only two things I wanted to switch, was the dodge and the crouch buttons, because whichever way the default was just backwards for most games. So I'm only switching these two buttons, and no matter how many binding combinations I tried, if I switched the two, I was never able to drop directly down from a ledge. So I'll get stuck on a ledge and have to reset my bindings, get off the ledge, and then switch them back so that I can crouch and dodge, which was infuriating. Another thing kind of like that was the little quick select menu that you use the D-pad for was just awful. Every time you pick up some sort of item like a trap or something you're not even going to use, it automatically adds it to the quick select menu. So you just end up with like 100 things down there. And I'm trying mid-combat to find my health potion, and I'm just endlessly scrolling through trying to find it while getting the shit beat out of me by a robotic kangaroo. Continuing on with my little rant, about 25 to 30% of the voice acting for the side quest characters specifically were just unbearably cringy. It's like they pulled some random dude off the street and had him read his lines directly off a piece of paper.
Avad offered amnesty to all who were forced to serve the Shadow, so the commoners cleaned out the Citadel and handed it back to him.
What was that? I just fell asleep while you were talking.
And I guess I just expect more from a AAA game in 2022, even for smaller side characters. The rest of the voice acting was absolutely phenomenal, though. Like, seriously, some of the best I've ever heard for Aloy and her immediately surrounding characters. I do feel like the trailers were a little misleading in one way. I think everyone was kind of expecting there to be underwater combat based on the trailers, and there just wasn't. I feel like it would have been something that would be so easy to put in the game, but there's absolutely no way to use your bow or spear in the water, which would have been really helpful because there's a ton of robots down there. And your only option is to like try to sneak past them by going through the seaweed or the kelp or whatever. This was the most aggravating thing, I think. The fucking tooltips that would pop up every time you level up. They take up like the top quarter of your screen. And if you're mid combat when this happens, you're simply fucked, completely fucked. You're just royally fucked because you can't see a damn thing. And it made me so mad. There's probably a way to turn them off, but then I wouldn't immediately notice when I leveled up. But holy shit, Gorilla, just make them a little bit smaller, put them up in the corner or in the bottom quarter of the screen where I'm not actively aiming at a robot pterodactyl that's trying to remove my eye sockets. For fuck's sake. This may be super dumb of me, but for some reason I just expected I'd still have access to the map from the first game, that it would just be expanded upon. Like, we get to see Meridian a little bit at the beginning, and then it's just completely locked away, which was kind of a bummer because I did want to catch up with everyone we met in the first game. We get a little bit of time with them at the beginning of the game, but then you're kind of right on to the Forbidden West. Lastly, another super dumb subjective thing that I just thought was a little odd. Every single character except from Aloy and maybe one other character just looked super doughy. Like they were just all really, really round. And by that, I don't mean fat. I just mean that all of their features were very round. And the graphics were great. I just thought it was a super odd style choice. I guess I just assumed that if you're fighting mechanical velociraptors every day, you'd be like super shredded and like chiseled and just look a little bit more athletic, but whatever. Now, it may seem like I'm being very critical of the game, but I actually love this game, and I think that it may be in my top 3 favorite games of all time, next to Dishonored and Deus Ex. There's maybe some kinks to work out or better decisions that could have been made by Guerrilla, but every single day I was so excited to get home and turn on my PlayStation to get back into the world of Horizon Forbidden West. I really hope that this game starts to get more traction after everyone kind of gets bored of Elden Ring or beats it or whatever, because there is so much to love here. That ending alone filled me with so many emotions, and I cannot wait to hop into the next game and see where the story takes us, because at this point, I have absolute faith in this studio that they're going to tell an amazing story and continually give us fantastic gameplay. All right, well, that is going to wrap us up here. Thank you so much for watching. And have you played Horizon? Did you enjoy it? Or are you going to play it now after watching this review? Definitely let me know down in the comments section. And I would love to talk with you guys about that ending or anything else revolving around this game. But please add some spoiler warnings to your comments for the people that haven't played this game, or just reach out to us on Twitter if you'd like to talk about the game in general. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow us on Twitter at Files Fantasy. And until next time, do as Aloy does. Distance yourself from your friends and family and push them away to explore Horizon's Forbidden West. That's probably really not good advice.